evening, everyone. We are really excited to have you all with us today for Spot.lk's webinar series. But before we start, we have got a few housekeeping items. First, all microphones will be kept on mute. You may keep your video on or off as your preference. If you have any questions, please use the chat option, and at the end of the presentation, we will answer these questions. And this session will be recorded and shared via the spot.lk social media pages. So now I would like to warmly welcome our guest speaker, Gihan Suarez. Hi Gihan, nice to have you with us today.
Hi, Deepshika.
Okay, so
Likewise.
first I give a small introduction about Gihan. So Gihan is a corporate trainer on strategy, organization design and development and performance-based culture and has more than 10 years experience on talent management. He is also a graduate with a bachelor's focused on leadership and management and has completed his MBA too. Gihan has been awarded the National Human Resource Professional of the Year at the 2018 National HR Conference. Also, during his free time, he lectures on subjects related to HR and works closely with university graduates too. Um, while not only focusing on HR, he is also an international athlete and coach for squash and has represented the country at Commonwealth, Asian Games, and World Championships too. So, Gihan is here with us today to speak about talent selection and how we can enable inclusive performance culture at work. So, Gihan, would you like to start off?
Thanks, Duke. Thanks for the introduction and welcome on board, everybody. First of all, hope everyone is safe and staying indoors as much as possible. The loved ones, the family, close ones are also safe because we have to take care of ourselves and our close ones as well. So, having said that, I think we are in a challenging. I wouldn't like to call it a difficult time period, but I would rather call it a challenging time period because a lot of things are evolving, and I think this pandemic has, whilst there are a lot of negatives of it, there are a lot of positives also that a lot of people have changed, a lot of businesses have different perspectives. The so-called new norm is a reality now. So I think the topics that we have for today, talent management, is also a topic in need these days, and that's something that a lot of companies have started to relook at differently because HR is done differently now. It's not the same HR that we used to do last year or before the pandemic began. Uh, Now we don't see each other as much as we used to. Right? A lot of people are working from home, distance uh, work from home has become the thing now. So talent management has become challenging, and I think a lot of areas have evolved in talent management. So let's talk about a couple of areas in it.
Okay. So, Gehan, considering that an individual is planning to join a company, why do you think it is important for them to consider what's in it for me? What do you have to say about that?
um yeah, so when we're talking about talent selection, so that is where the most important aspect, the most integral part of the journey that you're taking part and that you're joining an organization. So in terms of a selection, there are two sides to it. First of all, the company perspective, because the organization or the business would definitely want to pick the best suited candidate. In the same time, on the flip side of it, the candidates also like to get into the job, the role, the area of expertise that he or she would always dreamt of. So in this whole, the demands that two sides have, there are a lot of things that we miss out. Most importantly, from the candidate side, it has become, most importantly, it has become the side of the candidate where, we have to always look at when you're joining an organization, what am I getting into? Not just for a job. A lot of people need a job, that's true. But just because you need a job, we always apply, and just because you get selected, there are a couple of things that we need to always keep in mind. That is, are you joining the right place? Are you joining the right kind of work environment? Are you joining something that you see a future in, because those are the days that you join a company for a salary. Now things have moved on so much. Salary is one of the, yes, it's important, definitely, but I think it's not in the top three, I would say. Right? Salary has become the third or fourth thing that people look into now. Right? From the candidate's perspective, they always look into the environment, the culture of the company, and where the company is heading. Is the company going in the right direction? That's the second important thing. And thirdly, the future for me in that organization. Where can I go in the future with the company? Can I grow there? Can I get into the career and succession that I always dreamt of? So all these things are important for a candidate to evaluate, especially when you're applying for a job and even when you are going in for discussions, interviews. I think these are the topics that candidates need to initiate, right? Still, I see a lot of times at interviews, it's the business that asks 95% of the questions. And at the end, as a practice HR or somebody would always ask the question, do you have any questions for us? And I still see very less people asking questions at that point. Even if they ask the question, those are like very, I would say, politically correct questions that they always try to ask. Very, very common set of questions. And they ask if, there is this, and, what are the working times, what are the working hours, how does my structure works, when do you need me to join? So these are the very, few questions that we see always, pretty often. But I think that's the point. The candidate needs to really initiate very important questions and have a discussion, to see whether you're at the right place. In asking questions about, the growth of the organization, asking about the vision of the organization, because the vision of the organization has to be in line with the vision that you have as a person, your personal life, and secondly, the values of the organization, right? Does the business function on a set of values, and do you have a similar set of values that you can, marry with the organization? Without asking these questions, without having these discussions, and without looking at this side of information, sometimes we join the organizations and we realize in couple of days or in couple of months that we are not really happy. Yes, the pay may be good, the salary may be good, the compensation, everything is good, but still there is something that's missing, and that is what actually will keep you happy, because that 20 to 30% of alignment with the organization, with your personal vision, your personal perspective, your values, and your growth that you always expect. Without having that 30 to 20%, you will never be happy, satisfied in your role, because your salary and your all the other benefits you get are going to be about 60 to 70%. So I think that is why, Duke, it's always important for a candidate to initiate these conversations. And now the world has moved, whereas nowadays companies don't pick candidates or pick talent. It's the candidates who pick companies nowadays. That's why the uh, recruitment channels have changed now, right? It's not that companies are going behind candidates advertising to recruit people. Sometimes the companies are open now where people just go randomly. They check for the companies that they believe that they should be a part of, and they connect with them even before there is an opportunity. They log in, they create their profiles with that company, because they feel that they belong to that organization, they belong to that family, they belong to that culture and set of values, they share similar sentiments. That's why they go into the companies nowadays and log themselves in, they put their information in, they create a profile so the company knows. And that's a trend that we see in most of the Fortune 500 companies. The companies don't go behind recruitment, or they don't go and look for people whenever there is a need. They already have a set of candidates that have shown their interest because they share similar thoughts, similar sentiments, and similar values and a personal belief. And that way, the companies are, really getting somebody who will be a part of that. journey, not just somebody who comes in for a job. So looking at that, I think more weight goes into a candidate. So I think we as HR fraternity and even companies as leaders, we have a very big responsibility in creating that environment during our interviews and discussions to open those discussions. Sometimes if the candidate doesn't initiate these questions, I think we have a responsibility now. If you are looking at the best candidate, if you are looking at the right suited candidate, it's not just the qualification and the experience. We need to question and start a discussion about these things where they open up and they share their personal beliefs, they share their values, and see if the candidate is in line. Similarly, what are we looking for as an organization when we are looking at candidates? Right? Definitely, it's not just educational qualifications and experience. HR has KPIs. We have to find people when it comes to recruitment in a very short lead times. And the company is not going to be happy if as HR if we don't find people on time, right? And as a leader, we need somebody to come into the company, someone to come into my team to do the work. Because when someone is going to resign or if there is an opportunity for a role to be created, we always want to get somebody pretty fast, right? And that's fair enough because business needs to run. As a leader, we may be packed up the entire day, entire week, entire month. So we really want to get somebody to fill the positions, right? But are we taking the right direction? Are we taking the right calls, right? So it's just qualifications one thing, experience one thing, and of course what that person can add into the organization as values. Adding value to your department, to your function, and to the role that's created in the organization. And not just for the job opportunity that's created at that time, we have to look at the future, look at the growth of the organization, where the company is heading. Can this person be a part of a journey than just doing a job that is available at the moment? So we have to see this person in terms of transformation. Can this person be transformed into someone better in the future? Does this person have the skills, have the ability, capability to be someone better, to take up bigger roles, better roles, to diversify into different segments? Whether this person is about, taking on more than what he or she has done during the last couple of years of experience. I think that's one of the most important things that companies would focus these days, because you really don't want someone to just come and be working in one particular area. You want them to be expanding themselves, take on future projects, future business expansions, because internal mobility is the key to ensure that we deliver best performance. Because it's always far less costly, it's always far less time consuming to have internal mobility than just recruiting somebody out from outside. So that's the perspective from the company, right? So both needs to come and meet in the middle, and that's when we will find the best suited candidate. If we don't take these steps, if we try to fast track this, if we try to take shortcuts in this, sometimes company also wants somebody to come and just plug and play. And as a candidate, you also want to somehow get into a role. We want to get into the next role that we want to, and somehow we want to just get the salary that we always dream of. But it's not going to be long term. And that's where most of the problem starts. The candidate is going to be unhappy in the organization when the recruitment happens. The business is going to be, thinking again, okay, what have we done? Right? Have we made the right call? So these both sides are going to be, unhappy, and they are going to have different conflicts after that. So these conflicts are not seen, right? They are not conflicts that you will seeing them. But these things will be the reasons why certain people may not perform that you expect from them, because you recruit them because you really thought that person is the best, the most suited candidate. But 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, that's where you will actually see the real results. So I
So it's
think
all about
talent selection
finding.
is, yes,
So
go
it's all
ahead.
about
Yes.
finding the right person for the company.
Yes, exactly. But how are we going to do that? That is by us allowing the candidates to open up, right? The candidate may not open up in front of just three people. Sometimes, we are scaring candidates most of the times, right? I sometimes I hate to see, especially when the freshers join, right, at the age of 18 to 25. There, I call all of them freshers because they're just starting up their careers, maybe 1 or 2 years of internship or training experiences. So when they come for interviews, we are being very formal, too formal sometimes. Three people, seated in front of you, or sometimes now it's online, but still there are 3 or 4 people, asking you questions very directly, right? They are very formal questions, and sometimes the candidate doesn't speak up, right? He or she is shocked and stressed, uh, can't open up. So I think we need to change our ways of having discussions. I think there's no harm in taking someone for a coffee, right? Be it a fresher, be it a manager, right? As HR, or maybe as the person who really wants to select a person as a leader, why can't we just take someone for a cup of coffee in your pantry, right? Your interviews doesn't have to happen in the boardroom always, right? Find a very comfortable place in your office, maybe the couch that you have in front, maybe the lobby, or maybe in your pantry where you have a nice coffee machine. Grab a cup of coffee, right, and just sit with that person, open up to that person. First of all, tell that you're someone like this, the company's like that, and we value these kinds of things in the organization. And without getting into the formal interview questions, I think you will find better results in these kinds of discussions. And I have tried it, and I can assure that I have seen results in those kinds of discussions. Sometimes they come back to you after a couple of days saying that, look here, thank you very much for spending that time to have a coffee. I really value that. And after the conversation, I realized that I need to look into something in a different industry, right? Because they have realized with that conversation, them opening up and us also opening up to them, they have realized that they might be better suited in another industry or another organization, right? Sometimes after a couple of days, they have sometimes connected with me and told that, look here, thank you for sharing your thoughts, and thank you for having that time. uh, Maybe I was not selected for this particular position, but please tell me if there are any more positions in the future, because we have already won them as a company, right? We have already built that relationship with that candidate, right? Just like CRM, a customer relation management system, a candidate relationship management is also important, right? Because that person may not fit right now, but maybe that's the person who you need for the next couple of roles that you have in the future, right? So it's a relationship building activity, right? So the moment you win the candidate, it's a journey that you're starting, right? Either that person may join or may not, but either way, you're spending time to select the best candidate, not just do recruitment. So this responsibility lies with HR, the line manager, and also sometimes the CEO or the director of the organization, because that person is the one who's making the last call. So maybe even though HR has selected, sometimes the line leader has selected, I think the CEO or the last decision maker, the final decision maker, needs to spend time not checking into functional experience or capabilities or educational qualification. The last step is about checking with whether this person as a person fits into the organization, fits into the culture. But still, sometimes, we do 3 rounds of interviews, and 90% it's similar questions that's asked at all 3 interviews. HR also in the first round asks the same questions. The line manager also in the next round asks the same questions. When you go to the final round, they are also you ask the same questions about the job role, what they have done. So sometimes, you really don't spend time in other areas. So I think we can restructure this conversation, whereas the functional manager asks more functional specific questions to see whether this person really fits the technicality. Maybe HR can look at, in general as a person, looking into values, whether this person meets the values of the organization, whether this person can be transformed, whether this person has the requirements that you have in general. And then maybe, when you have the final round, that's where you really have a cup of coffee, not just do a interview, right? So that's the new norm, I think. So unfortunately, we may not do interviews at office for, I don't know, maybe for a year or two until we are back to normal. And I think this is the new normal. I don't think we will ever get back to normal, right? So I think interviews also will be online. But I think let's make it creative. Let's make it an experience, not just do a formal interview. Let's spend little bit of more time with them, open up to them, let them open up, and I think that's when we will have a better discussion and a better experience for both sides, and that will definitely give us results.
Thanks, Gehan. If anyone has any questions, please drop them in the chat box so that we can discuss them also. So Gehan, like these few days, actually like within the past few days, we have heard this popular term called Gen Z. What do you have to say about onboarding Gen Z? Why do you think that this is
Gen
actually
Z is, first
important?
of all, they're scary. Right? To begin with, they're scary, right? Because there are different types of species, right? Because even though I'm joking about it, I think it's seen at a lot of companies, right? The most challenging set of workforce has become Gen Z, right? When there were millennials, we thought that managing baby boomers are very difficult because they don't change, they don't transform, very hard for them to move into technology, digital. But once the moment Gen Z started coming into our company, now we are facing different set of challenges, right? Because Gen Z is very difficult to be managed, right? That is because not that they have anything in, as a downside, but companies or as businesses or as culture in your organization has not prepped themselves yet, right? Because let's look at Gen Z in general. Like, who are they? Like, they are the people who fast tracked their education, right? Not really waiting for sometimes O levels to finish, maybe A levels to finish, then going to a university for another 4 to 5 years, right? Gen Z has, there's a trend that they finish everything pretty fast, right? They like to have things fast tracked. They like to order a meal and have it in just 10 to 15 minutes delivered it to you, right? They want everything on top of their fingertips, right? They want everything faster, right? So are the companies moving in that speed? That's the most difficult thing, right? Do they have to wait for a response from the organization for a couple of days? Right? You send an email to somebody in the organization, maybe to your boss or maybe to a peer in your organization, someone in another department. But if they're in a different generation and if they're taking a lot of time, what is this Gen Z going to do, right? He or she will be very unhappy because you don't expect the same speed. You don't have the same speed that you expect from everybody else, right? So having said that, how do we onboard them? That is the most important thing, right? So we talked about recruitment, and it has a very big connect to onboarding because I believe recruitment stage, selection stage is also a part of onboarding, right? That's why I said the discussions are very important because you're actually having a conversation. And once you select somebody, then what do we do, right? Once again, HR has a KPI to do the induction and to onboard somebody, right? So HR will always tick 10 to 15 boxes saying that I have done the documentation, I have given the ID. IT will come and say I have set up the ID for email and the laptop is ready. The line manager will say yes, the seat is ready, the table is ready, the workload is ready, most importantly. And HR will, tick all these boxes, right? But is that enough? Right? HR will very happily go to the board meeting and say, HR has done this many recruitments and we have done onboarding. We have a great program, a 1 day program. You have a lengthy presentation for an entire day where they spend time with the other departments also. But is that what's, you know, really an onboarding means, right? So onboarding somebody goes beyond just 1 or 2 days. That HR work is done in 2 days or 3 days maximum, right? But is it only HR that's responsible and accountable for onboarding somebody new? The answer for that is the entire organization is responsible for onboarding new recruits, especially the Gen Z, right? Starting from your, you know, the most junior person in your office, right? Sometimes can be a support service assistant, to all the way up to the CEO is responsible to onboard somebody, right? Still, we see a lot of practices in companies where sometimes to get a time with the FC or financial controller, you have to get a time to send this new recruit to talk to that person for half an hour. And when you send that person, it's a very formal half an hour. You're seated in front of him, or maybe you're seated in a meeting room where the FC or somebody that you meet will go through a presentation with slides, and that's the induction, right? And they call it onboarding. There's a lot more to do than that, right? So when you meet somebody, or when as a leader, you may be in different departments, but when you get a new recruit to come and talk to you, it's, let's keep the technicalities to about 20 to 25%, and the rest of the 75% is going to be about the vision of the department, the vision of the activities that you do, and the real purpose behind the finance controller role, right? If it's the finance department that he or she is meeting, the purpose of the department, right? It's the purpose that Gen Z is always looking for, not just to go into a meeting room and just listen to a set of slides, or very technical terms saying our turnover is this and this is what we do. These are our tools that we use. This is how you need to obtain a IOU. This is how you need to settle petty cash. And these are the common things that we hear when you go to a finance onboarding. Similarly, when you go for a to meet somebody else, maybe a project manager, what do you hear from that person? That person will say, I'm currently managing 50 projects, and this is the amount of work that I do, and these are the technical terms, and these are the technical things we do, right? But why can't we talk about the alignment of your role to the vision of the organization, right? The moment people start talking about the vision, the purpose of your department, the purpose of your role, that's when the Gen Z will really understand the organization. It's not just going through a couple of presentation and ticking boxes by HR and by different people, right? So having this Gen Z into the organization, onboarding lasts at least for 3 to 6 months, right? Gone are the days that we see onboarding is just 1 day, 2 days, and probation is 3 to 6 months, right? Things have changed now, right? I believe that a probation is important from the legal perspectives. That is to see if both parties are in line, and is in line with the expectations from both sides. But in addition to that, this 3 to 6 months is the onboarding for Gen Z, and 75% of the time, if the generation sees onboarding is successful, the chances of them retaining in the organization for more than 3 to 5 years is very much high, and that's at 75%, right? So 75% of Gen Zs have told that if they were happy with the onboarding within the first 3 to 6 months, and they would last definitely for 3 years, right? And between 3 to 5 years, because the success of their uh, joining the organization or being a part of that organization is the onboarding, right? So as I said at the beginning, it's not just HR or the line manager, it's everybody in the organization. So everybody in the organization should be trained how to onboard somebody, how to welcome someone, right? Sometimes it takes 5 to 6 days, or sometimes it takes weeks for some of the employees to even have a word with that person. Sometimes you might meet each other in the pantry, sometimes you might meet each other at the cafeteria, but you really don't have a conversation. You don't know each other. Sometimes you don't even know the names of each other, right? But I think everybody should know, like, that's why we do little bit of practices by HR, things like we share a welcome note so that everybody knows who's meeting, right? Who's coming into the company this week. So as an employee of that organization, you and I, we all have a responsibility. We have seen the welcome note, and that welcome note is shared for a reason. That is to welcome the employee. So I, as an employee in the organization, has a very big responsibility to say hi to this person when I meet him or her. That could be the cafeteria, or could be the pantry, or could be just, walking here and there. You might just bounce on this person. That's when you say hi. I got to know that you're a sportsman. I got to know that you're a singer. I got to know that you dance. I got to know that your passion is this. Right? It's not necessarily about work. Connect with them. Right? Connect with them. Sometimes a new recruit is not welcome to join couple of activities that the company does. Maybe little bit of groups have, that they go to play badminton on an evening, or to go play futsal, or they go for a movie night, or they go out some nights. But it takes couple of days, couple of weeks, sometimes couple of months to onboard the new recruit to these kinds of activities. That's when we as a business lose them. The moment that happens, even though they may be a part of our job, our company, we have lost them. They are only with us until they find the next stop for them. Right? They will start looking out. The moment they feel these differences, discriminations, I call them discrimination, right? When people don't welcome somebody to the organization, right? I call it discrimination, because it's a discrimination. Right? Companies only talk about discrimination when it comes to gender and all these other things. This is where the discrimination starts, first of all. Right? You need to be able to welcome someone who's joining your organization. I think as HR, we have a very big responsibility to educate everybody in the organization, explain them that it's a journey, and you're having just not another employee joining us. We are getting someone to be a part of our journey, and we need to share the same journey. Right? It's a journey that we all need to hold hands and go. So without welcoming this person, without having this person with us, you will not be able to have that person in our journey. Right? We believe that that person comes to my team, sits next to me, that person works, it's all okay, this person is part of the journey. Not really. Right? Not really. That person is just doing the job, doing the workload, not really a part of your journey. The moment you create this environment in the organization where everybody is a part of the onboarding process, everybody takes a responsibility to welcome everyone, take time in talking to them, in sharing memorable experiences in the first few days, first few weeks itself. That's when they actually become a part of the journey. Until then, they are just employees. And if you don't do it at all, they will be just an employee for a couple of months, and they will look out for the next opportunity that they have outside. So Gen Z is expected, right? Then Gen Z wants to be included. They wants to be involved, right? And another downside that I see in a lot of businesses is that we keep the new recruit for a couple of months to test and see. Sometimes we don't get that person into meetings. Sometimes we don't get that person into important discussions, because we feel that that person might listen to our stories and maybe leave, or maybe uh, sharing a lot of information is not good at the first few days. That's not the expectation from a Gen Z, right? Not even from Gen Z. I think even myself, I think I belong to millennials, but even I want to be involved. I want to be informed, first of all, and I want to be involved from the day one, right? Because you can't select somebody, get someone into the company, and then say, I want to test this person for a couple of weeks or couple of months. That's another discrimination that we do, right? So if you're selecting someone, that means you have already decided that person is going to be a part of our journey. Then begin the journey. Don't keep that person, waiting for a couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months. I think it's very important that Gen Z is onboarded, and that we have them well looked after in the first couple of days, and the Gen Z onboarding lasts for 3 to 6 months. So we have to take care of them. So I think that's about Gen Z.
Gihan, you were saying about like say when a newcomer comes that we like if we see him somewhere we can talk to him or we can say about old stories and stuff. This would have been actually much easier if we were at office. How do you think we could do this like because we are working from home only with our laptops?
I think that's when conversations needs to start, right? So the next session that we have today's webinar is about little bit of conversation. How do we have conversations with the employees that we have in the organization? So we don't have the luxury, as you very rightly said, to meet each other. Sometimes during the last 1 year, companies have recruited employees and they have never seen anybody, any other employee in the organization physically. They would have been connected online, they would have connected through different channels, but they have not been, meeting each other. So that's when we have to be creative as businesses. Now there's another new trend that's starting, that businesses have now gone beyond the working hours. Right now, those days when you go to office to work, we start at 8:30 or we finish at 5:30. Unless there's something very critical, you don't really wait till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at work. And I personally don't encourage anyone to work overtime unless it's extremely necessary, right? So those days, you go at 8:30, you finish at 5:30, and you go home, right? And then you have your time with your families and everything. But now things have changed, and I blame it on the companies, right? I myself did it in the first few months when the COVID pandemic started. We take it for granted, thinking that okay, the person is at home, not doing anywhere, nothing else to do. It's pandemic, so let's call that person even at 8 o'clock in the night or 9 o'clock in the night, right? And sometimes we schedule meetings, regardless of working hours, anytime that we feel that we should just get somebody on call, right? I think sometimes we skip, we don't remember the lunchtime anymore, right? Sometimes there's no lunchtime, right? Sometimes you have meetings going through the entire day, right? So that's one side of businesses that we have to be really careful, right? Because Gen Z and the millennials need to have their personal space, right? They love to spend time with their friends. They love to spend time with their loved ones. They love to spend time on their passion, right? They all have hobbies. They all love to do something that they really feel important apart from work. And we should first of all encourage them for that. And we should always create that culture where, you know, the line managers, the employees, and everybody in the organization understands where to draw the line, right? So having said that, that's little bit of an area that we can improve as HR and as businesses. To answer your question in how do we connect, that's when we can be creative, right? I have seen companies organizing the wine night, where you're at home but you can serve a glass of wine for you or have a beer for yourself, and you connect not for work, right? You don't talk anything about business. You're on Zoom, you're on Microsoft Teams, but you don't talk about work there, right? Somebody can sing, somebody can do something, somebody can share some stories that have happened, and you have a nice, a drink and a laugh. So that's one activity that we can implement. And I've seen some of companies have already started that, and it's going great, right? And having those connects, little connects, right? Because people are now fed up of looking at a screen and talking about business, honestly, right? I've spoken to a lot of leaders. I've spoken to a lot of corporates in the last couple of months, and it's one thing that everybody has expressed, that they are not really enjoying this talking to a screen thing, right? Because you do that day in day out and you talk about business. So let's break that, right? That's when we can bring these kinds of activities, Duke, where you can have a special evening organized, once a week, maybe just 2 hours on a Friday, right? Maybe not a Friday because that's the time that you spend with your friends and your family, right? That's the other thing that a lot of companies do, do incorrectly. Like the moment HR is given the challenge to organize something, we always look at Friday night or a Saturday night. But your employees already have plans, right? They look forward to their Fridays and Saturdays to spend with their friends, their closed ones, their families. right? I always believe when companies want to organize something, they should look at days like, the midweek, maybe a Wednesday or maybe a Tuesday, right? But that may be, busy for the company, busy for the business, but we are putting our employees in trouble by putting these things or scheduling these things for a Friday and a Saturday, right? Because they sometimes they can't, go for their friends meetings or things that they have already planned, and they can't, politely say no to also, because they think that my boss is going to be unhappy, company is going to be unhappy, HR is going to be unhappy. They're not willingly taking part in it, right? They are forced to take, take part in it, right? It's it's something that we can change. It's always good to have these things organized on an odd day. Monday to Friday you have, Monday to Thursday you have 4 days. Let's pick one of those days, right? Have a small session, right? And now, sometimes I see companies have started like going back to work once a week, or maybe meeting once a month in office as a team. So that's when you can just allocate, the latter part of the day, maybe 3 to 4 hours, take everyone for a coffee maybe, right? That's when you gel with everyone, right? Not just, get everyone to talk at, office, or just, you're meeting everybody only on one particular day, and you want to finish off all the things that you have regarding work, right? Let's allocate a couple of hours for that. But I think being creative, to come up with different kinds of initiatives online is the key. I think we need to get them involved.
I agree with you. Uh, Gehan, what about talent development?
All right. So now we are working with the new norms, right? So those days, talent development. So one of the things that I'm really happy with the challenge with the pandemic, that companies have now transformed to look at talent development in a different perspective. Those days, the moment talent development topic comes up, it directly relates to trainings and development that we do, right? You talk about sending someone for a training, right? Sending someone for a workshop, sending someone for a certification or a course, right? And over the last 1 year, we saw how the entire world changed in the area of learning and development, right? Forget about let's forget about work. Let's forget about corporates and businesses. Let's look at our personal lives, right? It was found out that within the first 6 months since the pandemic started, so in Sri Lanka it started in March, but in some of the other countries it started somewhere from beginning of the year. During the first 6 months, it has been found out people have learned about cooking, about gardening, about painting, about a lot of house skills during those first 3 to 6 months of the pandemic, right? And they learned all of that online, self-served learning, not because somebody else told them, not because the corporate organized these trainings. They themselves, found, okay, I need to learn cooking now because I'm at home. I have, a lot of time to do, look into something else. Business is not really operating at the moment. Maybe I'm free, so I will cook something new. And a lot of people started, gardening, right? And they learned about it. And the YouTube and a lot of these social media channels have shown the insights that the growth has been exponential in terms of how people learn. So coming back to corporates now, right? So how this changed in the corporates, right? For the last couple of years, businesses have been trying to implement an organizational development culture, right? Because companies wanted to move away from the training and development activity, because companies always thought that training and development is what we call organizational development. But when the time has changed during the last couple of years, companies really wanted to look at an organization as a whole in development. So that is when companies really looked at a culture in the organization to allow to create that environment for everyone to develop in the organization. And that's not really through HR organizing trainings, or you're taking off the competencies that you really want to develop in that particular quarter or the year. It's about the company creating the environment for the employees to really look at, and the line managers to really look at what to be developed in that person. As an example, if it's communication skills, right? Sometimes we always hear, the line manager saying, my employee X requires to be developed in communication. And then what HR does is we go look for a communication skills workshop, or we go looking for a trainer to come and do a workshop for us, right? But I think development happens not just through going for a training. It happens with a lot of other things as well, where you combine all these activities that you do in the organization and come up with something as a solution, not just a training program. So the solution will have coaching, mentoring, even having conversations in the organization, developmental conversation, performance based conversation. And one of the things that I will be sharing with you today is about having these conversations, how to have these conversations in the organization in the perspective of developing people. So back to the beginning, development is not just about doing a training or sending someone for a certification, getting somebody certified, or just developing one particular thing. So development, the word itself is about long term, right? You're looking somebody through to the future, not just do a training and just tick the box. So in doing that, I will be sharing a couple of tools today with you, in how we can restructure our learning journey in an organization. So I call it's a learning culture that we need to create in the organization. I think it's companies could have great systems, maybe the best system in the world. Sometimes you might partner with the greatest process, or you might just buy a greatest HRMS system to the organization. But then come and say after a couple of years or a couple of months that we have still failed. Having the best system in house, having the best HRMI has not helped us. Why is it? The reason is it's not the system that will really create this environment. Your system process is just to govern what you do in the organization. It is to bring some method to the madness. If you don't have a process, if you don't have a system, things are all over the place, right? Your system and your process is to gather information, gather data, and process it so that there is method to the madness. But it doesn't really define what your culture is going to be. So when you're looking at a learning organization, when you're looking at developing people, when you're looking at performance based employees, it's a lot more than just a system and a practice. So what I'm going to share now, what you see already on my screen, two very powerful tools that are currently out there. So these two tools have been developed by Center for Creative Leadership. So it's an institute, a non-profit institute, one of the largest, world's largest organization in terms of developing leadership, right? So they call the Center for Creative Leadership, CCL. So they have come up with these two models and tools. One is about having conversations. The other one is about one part of that conversation, which is feedback, right? So I'll tell you why conversations are important. So I told that, just now, the systems are just there to guide you or to have information processed and to have method to the madness. It's the conversation that really allows you as a leader or as an employee to find out what is really going on in that organization and what's really going on in your personal development, right? To start with, the first tool is about how you coach somebody, right? Because learning and development and organizational development, performance based culture starts there. As a line leader and as an employee, how do you connect? How do you have conversations in the organization, not just to talk about the work problem or the challenge that you're currently facing, but how do you have a conversation which is more structured to ensure that we develop the employee together with the problem? We always like to take shortcuts, right? As a leader, I myself have done this mistake. Whenever someone from your team comes to you with a problem, we like to help that person, and we have a responsibility to help that person. So we finish off the conversation by giving the solution, right? We always say, do this, this is the answer, this is what you need to do, and do it like this. So it's a very short and sweet conversation that you have. And do you think that the employee has learned something from it? No, not really, right? Because it's you who has actually told that person what to do. That person has not really, developed another skill in that problem. But there's a very famous saying that, give a man a fish, right? That person will eat that fish and be happy for one day. But, coach someone to fish, right? That person is going to be happy for the entire life, right? Similarly, the moment when someone comes to you with a problem or with a challenge or to ask something from you as a line leader and a line manager, you have a responsibility to not just give the answer. Stimulate the employee to find the answer by that person, and that requires patience and that requires time. And these are the most difficult things that I have seen from the line leaders, right? So I sometimes have had very difficult conversations with some of the line managers, some of the line leaders, in explaining them and trying to transform them to have this kind of conversation, not just give a solution and just send that person off. It's okay to take little bit of more time, take few extra minutes, take an hour, and allow that person to find the solution to the problem. But you coach that person, not just give the answer. So there are four core skills that you require to have, right? So those are: listen to understand, ask powerful questions in that conversation, challenge and support, not just support, not just give the solution, challenge that person to think differently. And finally, establish next steps and accountability. So these are the four steps that we talk about in this particular tool. And this tool is called LACE model, LACE. So please feel free to go Google it up. There are a lot of tutorials. There are a lot of YouTube videos with examples how it's done. The moment you start practicing the LACE model, you can see every single conversation that happens in the organization is anchored to developing people, is anchored to looking at performance of people. You're moving bricks forward, not just have a conversation, finish off a problem, present it at the board meeting, right? That way every day you will have to do it. So your teams are at the same level every day, because all you have done is just giving them answers. You have not stimulated them to think beyond. You have not stimulated them. You have not created an environment for them to find solutions for the problem. So therefore, they don't develop. Only when you put them into the deep end that they will learn to swim. In the shallow water, they will be comfortable. They will just keep their feet on the ground and they will just be comfortable. The moment you push them to the deep end, that's when they open up. That's when they really start thinking differently. So as a favor to your team, right, don't look at it in different perspectives. Just look at it from your doing something good for your team members, because sometimes we feel bad by not giving the answer, right? I've had those kinds of line leaders also, where they have told me that Mashang, look here, I feel really bad not to give the answer. That person was really stressed. That person was pulling her hair or pulling his hair to find the answer. So I've told, look here, don't feel bad about it. Yes, you helped this person today, but where is that person going tomorrow if that person has a similar problem? What is that person going to do in a month when that same question pops up? So as a favor to your team, let's learn this tool, spend some time in learning the LACE model, and that will give you a lot of benefits. And you're going to have a culture for learning, because your culture in an organization, I think it has a very big weight on having conversations, because your line leaders always connect with the employees, right? Day in, day out, you talk about problems. If you look at an entire day, I think 80 to 90% you talk about work problems with your line managers and your teams. But imagine if you can transform all these conversations into this model, you're going to have great results. You're going to see people improving their performance because they're not going to come to you for the next problem. They are going to find the answer for that question next time because you have taught them, you have coached them. So, coaching is about stimulating them and about transforming them to be a different person tomorrow. So, having said that, the next model similarly is about something I really love, feedback, SBI, right? Something that I have passionately used in my career for the last couple of years, which I have seen results myself. So, how do we give feedback to someone, and why is feedback important? Is feedback important in the first place, right? So, when you're looking at an organization, uh, there are times that you have to give feedback to somebody, right? Especially as a line leader, you have to give feedback to your teams, and as an employee, you need to give feedback to your line managers sometimes. You need to give feedback to your colleagues, maybe to your peers that you have in other departments. So sometimes, most of the times, we have seen that people avoid feedback, thinking that, why should I just go and talk about something which the other person is not going to like? Why should I just, bother talking about something which is not, really matter to me? Right? Why should I just go and tell something? What if that person thinks bad about me if I go and talk to that person about it? Right? These are, little bit of wall block that we have in our heads about feedback. That is because we are trying to be polite always, right? We always try to be politically correct in the organization, right? When we are talking to someone in the organization, your peers and your colleagues, we always try to be politically correct, right? We try to, not to hurt anybody or, any of those. But if you know the art of feedback, you're not going to have this problem of thinking twice before talking to someone because you know how to not to hurt someone no matter how bad what you're going to tell you. You can be, telling somebody something that person hates to listen to, but if you know the art of telling that, if you know the art of having that conversation, I think you're going to be successful having that conversation. So if everybody in the organization is trained and is, equipped to have this kind of conversation, have this level of discussions in the organization, I think as an organization the culture is going to be, you know helping everyone to develop as an organization. You're helping everyone to perform at a higher level. So what is this tool? Once again, it's also a product of CCL, Center for Creative Leadership. It's called SBI. The feedback model is called SBI. So there are three letters, and the words are situation, behavior, and impact. So it's about, I'll give an example, right? So sometimes, a lot of times, not sometimes, most of the times, line managers come to HR and they tell, Shamali in my team has, very less communication competencies, or, not really doing well with presentation, right? So that's the comment that the line manager is giving me as HR. So I need to now, give an answer back to the line manager. So I will say, okay, Mashan, so what do you want me to do? So then we both agree that we need to do a training program. We need to develop her in the first place. So how are we going to develop? We agree that, okay, we are going to send her for a communications or a presentation skills workshop. So we send that person to a presentation skills workshop. In a week's time, again, this line manager comes to me and say, Mashan, maybe that training program that we sent was not, you know, not the best one. Still, I think we need to send her for a different trainer or a different program, right? No matter if you do this 10 times, still you will not get the result. Why is it? Because we have not really anchored our conversation to the point. We have just been firing around the bush, right? The conversation that could have happened and that should have happened is about going into that exact point that you really want to find out. So my question back to the line manager should have been, all right, so what's wrong in her communication? What's really lacking in her communication skills? Then the line leader will start thinking twice. Okay, why is she bad, or why is she lagging behind? Is it because uh, maybe she doesn't know how to articulate the conversation. Then I ask the question, okay, so you mean that her presentation is very good, her designing skills are very good, she is great in that, her language skills are good, she's speaking in good English or whatever the language that she is using in the conversation. But the problem is she is yet to be developed in articulating that story. That's the problem. So imagine how powerful if you really know how to anchor your conversations to the situation, to the behavior, and the impact. So that's in terms of developmental perspective. In general, when you want to give feedback to someone, we always use these, general terms like, this person is, uh, you know, very, I would say, annoyed. This person is very arrogant in the workplace, right? We share these words sometimes at work, right? This person is like this person is like that. We say, arrogant, the words that are very general. Who are we to justify somebody saying that someone is arrogant? But we have no right to call someone arrogant. We have no right to call someone with a word or a term that we just come to our head, right? Sometimes you need to really find out, without saying that term arrogant, what's really in it, what has really gone wrong, what has really happened in that situation. So first of all, when we are going to talk to somebody, so why you call someone arrogant is maybe at a team meeting, this person didn't allow you to talk. Sometimes always when you started to talk, this person just talked louder and didn't allow you to talk. So you felt that this person is arrogant and doesn't like me in that instance. Now you're thinking about it. That may be not the truth, but you're thinking like. So how can you go and really find out what really happened? You need to go and talk to that person, which we don't do because we don't know how to go and talk to that person. You can't just go and ask, Machang, you just didn't allow me to talk in the meeting. Why is that? You can't ask like that, but you need to find an art to do that. So that's when you use the SBI feedback, where you go and talk to this person in a framework. So I'll show that how we are going to do that. So the situation is Machang, yesterday at the team meeting, remember we were having the team meeting in the evening, uh, so that's the situation, right? Yesterday team meeting in the evening, right? So yesterday team meeting at the in the evening. Then you talk about the behavior. Masan, you didn't allow me to talk, Masan. I was trying to say, but I think you were, talking loud and you had a lot of things that you wanted to say. But I really had two key points that I wanted to explain, but I didn't get a chance. That's the behavior that you saw in that person. The impact that you had in it. You need to share that person, Masan. I was, upset. No, I felt sad because I had very important points to tell, but I didn't get an opportunity. And you can ask, Masan, what happened? Why did that happen? Then you will realize 80 to 90% of the times the other person who did that doesn't even know that person did something like that. It was unintentional, right? Because you don't know that actually until you ask this question. You think that person doesn't like you think that person didn't allow you to talk because that person has something against you. That's something you have in your head, not really what happened. The moment you have this conversation saying, Mashang, yesterday at the team meeting, you talked loud, you didn't, whenever I was going to talk, you talked on top of me. I was hurt. I was disappointed. Mashang, why did that happen? That's when, the other person will open up, say, oh my goodness, Mashang, I didn't know, I didn't do that intentionally. I'm very sorry. So imagine how beautiful this conversation is, right? You're giving feedback to that person, right? And it's a negative feedback. It's not a positive feedback. It's a negative feedback. But imagine how easy to give even a negative feedback to someone, right? And you are going to have a politically correct conversation, right? So if you practice this in the entire organization, I think you are going to have great results. Let's look at a positive feedback now. So what I gave you is a negative feedback. How do you give a negative feedback? Right now we are looking at a positive feedback. So in terms of positive feedback, always the boss will come and say you, put a tap on your, pat on a back, and that person will say, you did great in the presentation, that you did great in the project, you did great in the last quarter, well done, and we'll give a cap and we'll give a award, and you are the best employee of the team in that particular quarter. But do you think that will help that person? No, because you're giving something in general. You're saying you were good, but how subjective is good? The good to me is different to good to someone else. The word good can be very subjective. You were great. The word great, the meaning of great can be subjective from person to person. Your presentation was good. Presentation being good is subjective to me, to somebody else, right? But how do you really tell that person more meaningful? You can say, yesterday at the team meeting, when you were presenting our plan, you talked very straightforward. You were clear and precise. You had your presentation done very creatively. You had your story articulated very well. I was very happy as your line leader. I'm very proud of you. Keep up the good work. Now imagine this person knows what to continue, because my boss appraised me for doing a very good job in the presentation, and I know why I did good. I had a very good articulation of the story. Presentation was great. I talked very well. I presented very well, and my story was very precise, and very I impressed my boss, and my boss gave me what I have done well, and I know what to do next in the next meeting also. I need to continue these things, right? So that's how you give a positive feedback, right? It's we have to avoid these general ways that we call someone good, you are great, you did very well, right? These are very subjective terms and there is no meaning in it. The person who's listening to you doesn't know why this person told me that I'm good. We'll smile at you, we'll say thank you, but doesn't really go beyond that. But if you really want to get the same delivery from that person next time, if you want to have the same result from that person in the next quarter also, give him exactly what good things you saw, so that person knows what to continue. So that is about SBI. Once again, there are a lot of tutorials on YouTube, on Google. Just Google it up, SBI Feedback Framework by CCL. You will learn it. And feedback is something that you can even use at home. Doesn't have to happen only at work. Even with your spouse, with your children, I have tried to practice it and it really works. Right? Sometimes you don't want to go and talk to your spouse because you don't know how to tell that. Right? Sometimes you're hurt and you don't know how to tell that person that you were hurt with something that the other person did. But if you can go and have a conversation saying, yesterday, we had this conversation and during that you said a word like this, which I felt very sad. And the other person surprisingly will tell you, oh my goodness, I'm very sorry, it was unintentional because I didn't really thought about it. And you all are friends once again, even with your spouse. You don't have to, not to talk to that person about it. Sometimes we keep these things in our heads and our minds without opening up to the other person because we don't know how to open up. Even at work, you have a lot of people that you have a lot of things to say, but you don't want to open up to them. You don't want to have those conversations because we don't know how to do it. But the moment you have SBI with you, your conversations, your discussions are going to be very easy in the organization. You know how to talk to somebody. So these are the two tools that I have personally used them. In fact, I was an internal trainer in one of the organizations that I worked previously in these two tools, and it's something that I can proudly present to all of you to learn and to start experiencing the SBI and the LACE modeling conversations. So I think, Duke, that was a long answer to one of the questions that you had. But moving on to the next slide. So this is just an example, right? So the example that I showed you about the line leader coming to you and telling about somebody in that organization. So the manager comes and tells HR, Natalie needs to be developed in communication skills. She's not up to the level I expect her to perform. So that's the comment from the manager. So what does the HRD, the HR person will say? Will ask the question and should ask the questions now onwards. What do you mean? What are your observations? Because HR can't just go and find a program for communication. That's not going to work. You need to find out what exactly to develop in that person. And then you start the conversation to go beyond. And then the manager will say, these kinds of things. And of course, finally, the employee is going to be the happiest person because from the line manager and from HR, the employee has got the best solution. The employee is the customer here, right? Just like your customer is the king in your business, in your culture, the recipient, the employee is the king as a customer internally. So as a line manager and as HR, you need to collaborate and give the best solution to make this person happy. That's how you can make Gen Z and millennials happy in your organization. They want that level of solutions, that level of customer satisfaction. In terms of developing people in the organization, so this is another tool that I can present to you, 70-20-10 approach in learning. So it talks about when you're developing people, gone are the days that you send people for trainings. It has been, tested and it has been proven that 70% of on-the-job experience have developed people to a great extent. And 20% informal learning, where you learn from your boss, where you learn from your observations, you go and work with somebody else on a different project to learn. So those are informal learning. And only 10% that you learn from structured training programs. So 70% on the job, where you do your job while learning. So that's when your line manager supports you with coaching. The line manager doesn't give you the solution when you go to him. He will give you, an environment for you to think differently and find the solution by yourself. That's 70% of the time. And 20% you shadow somebody, you shadow your boss, you shadow somebody in a different project. And 10% is about formal learning. So that's another tool that you can restructure your learning experiences in the company. You need to have all your line managers trained and developed in coaching and mentoring, and have everybody in the organization trained and transformed to talk about, having better conversations, the LACE model, the conversations, and as well as feedback. I think these kinds of tools are the ones that are going to take the new norm to the next level, right? Because now you're not having people physically in the office, right? You're not seeing them physically. So your conversations have to be better structured because you're talking over the phone, you're talking on WhatsApp, you're talking on Zoom and Teams calls. So you're talking to them, right? You're not seeing them in real. So therefore, your conversations have to be well structured than ever before. I think this is a key for new norms of work when everybody is working from home and we are connecting through all the social media. So let's try to, have these best practices in our organizations. So Duke, I think that's a long answer about performance and developing culture at workplace.
Thank you, Gihan. A lot to learn, and we really need to change, I think, the way we are doing things today. Thanks a lot.
Definitely. So maybe I think we can take a couple of questions from the participants as well.
Um, I don't think there are any questions, Gihan, for us to continue. So,
Great, of course. So then I think we can wrap up, Divshika.
yes, yeah. Thanks a lot, Gihan.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
also. And also, I'd like to thank the audience also for patiently listening to everything. And also, I think we have a lot to take back with us from what we heard today. So please note that this recording will be posted on spot.lk's social media pages as soon as possible. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. Stay safe. Take care of yourself.